Try opening the hood of any car that just rolled off a dealership lot this year. Instead of the familiar sight of an exposed engine, what greets you are plastic covers fastened with specialized screws, ones that no ordinary wrench set can reach. This isn't about neatness or organization, this is a carefully engineered trap. Even a simple action like replacing the battery can cause a modern car to immediately lock down its system if it doesn't receive the required authentication code from the manufacturer's server. You may have spent tens of thousands of dollars to own that vehicle, but in reality, you're often only being granted temporary permission to use it. Why does a car need network access just to start? And since when did taking care of your own property become a legal barrier?
In this video, we're going to peel back the mask of so-called security and reveal what it really is: a system designed to monopolize repair.
The DIY era, when cars belonged to their owners. A few decades ago, a car wasn't a mysterious black box. When you opened the hood, you didn't see layers of plastic covers or confusing electronic modules. What you saw was a true mechanical machine. The engine sat right at the center. The surrounding components were clearly exposed. You could see the carburetor, the belts, the fuel pump, and the lines running along the engine block. Everything was visible, and more importantly, everything was accessible with just a few basic tools. Back then, manufacturers didn't just sell cars, they sold transparency. Every car came with a thick service manual. Inside were detailed technical drawings of each system, diagrams of every component, and step-by-step instructions for disassembling or replacing parts. Every bolt and every mechanical detail was clearly explained. Those books weren't written just for service centers, they were written for the owners themselves. With that manual and a few basic tools, many maintenance tasks could be done right in your own garage. You could replace the spark plugs yourself, swap out the fuel pump, or adjust the fuel system. Even replacing a belt was a fairly common job for many car owners. A weekend afternoon in the family garage was often a simple scene. The hood was open, a radio played music in the corner, and the owner wiped grease from their hands after fixing a small part. Fixing your own car. DIY wasn't anything unusual. It was almost a natural part of owning a car. You understood your car. You knew every sound the engine made. And when something went wrong, you could often figure out the problem yourself. In that era, owning a car didn't just mean driving it. It meant understanding it, taking care of it, and when necessary, repairing it with your own hands. You had the right to open it, the right to understand it, and the right to intervene in your own property. But that very transparency and ability to repair the car yourself created a problem. Because when a car is designed so that the owner can maintain and fix it, the owner doesn't need to return to the dealership for every small issue. And for modern corporations, that was not an ideal business model. So over the following decades, the car began to change. Transparency slowly disappeared, replaced by layers of plastic covers and increasingly complex electronic systems. Engine bays became tighter components, harder to reach, and more of the car's functions came under the control of software. The car that was once a simple mechanical machine was gradually turning into a closed system. And with that shift, the owner's ability to repair it themselves began to disappear. What changed? Cars became computers. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It began quietly in the late 1990s when manufacturers started placing computers inside cars. At first, the goal was simple: improve engine efficiency and reduce emissions. But once those first electronic systems appeared, the nature of the car itself began to change. Electronic control units, ECUs, started to appear inside the engine bay. At first, it was just a small box sitting next to the engine. But over time, they quickly became the brains that control nearly everything in the vehicle. These tiny brains constantly receive data from a wide range of sensors, placed throughout the vehicle: oxygen sensors, in the exhaust engine temperature sensors, and throttle position sensors. All of this data is sent to the car's computer multiple times every second. The computer then determines the exact amount of fuel injected into the engine, the precise timing of the ignition, and how the engine responds when you press the accelerator. At first, there was only one ECU, but over time, the number of computers inside a car began to grow. A modern vehicle today can contain 50, sometimes even more than 100 different electronic control units. The engine has its own computer. The transmission has its own computer. The ABS braking system has its own computer. Safety systems like airbags, traction control, and stability control all have their own dedicated processors. These control units don't operate independently. They constantly communicate with each other through an internal electronic network inside the vehicle. This network is called the CAN Bus Controller Area Network. You can imagine it like a miniature internet network inside the car. Each component sends data to the others, and everything is coordinated by software. When you press the accelerator, it's no longer a mechanical cable pulling the throttle like it used to. Instead, the pedal sends an electronic signal to the car's computer. The computer then decides how much the throttle should open. Even the braking system in many modern cars is no longer purely mechanical. Sensors and electronic control units constantly monitor wheel speed, braking force, and road traction. All of this technology brings clear benefits. Cars become more fuel efficient, safety systems become smarter, and engines operate more efficiently than ever before. But it also completely changed the way a car is repaired. In the past, when a mechanical part failed, you simply replaced that part. Today, replacing the component is often only the first step. After installation, the car may still refuse to operate. Not because the part is faulty, but because the vehicle's software doesn't recognize the new component. You may have finished fixing the mechanical part, but the car now demands something else access to its software system. That's the moment your car turns into a digital black box, where traditional mechanical knowledge is no longer enough to solve the problem. And this complexity isn't entirely accidental. In many cases, it's a system designed to control who is allowed to repair your car. The locked car when copyright takes control. This is where the story begins to get worse. You might think that when a component fails, the solution is simple: remove it and replace it with a new one. But in many modern cars, things no longer work that way. Today, a car is more like a smartphone on wheels. Inside, it isn't just metal, oil, and bolts. It's a network of electronic systems, and each component is identified by data. In many vehicles, each important component has its own unique digital identifier. A window switch, a tire pressure sensor, even the battery. All of these can be checked by the car's system when you install them. When a new component is installed, the car's electronic brain, the ECU, scans and verifies it. If that component hasn't been coded or paired with the system, the vehicle may simply refuse to recognize it. You may have just replaced a component with a brand new one, but the car still shows an error. Not because the part is faulty, but because the vehicle's software hasn't authorized it to operate. That means after replacing the component, there's still another step required: registering that part with the car's software system. And in most cases, the software required to do that is only available at dealerships or authorized service centers. But the software is only half the problem. The physical design of cars has also changed in ways that make repairs far more difficult. If you open the hood of an older car, the engine is usually exposed with enough space to access important components. Today, engine bays are often packed extremely tightly. Wires, hoses, and electronic modules are crammed into a very limited space. In some cases, replacing a small component can require removing nearly the entire front section of the vehicle. A job that once took about 30 minutes in a home garage can now take hours in a service shop. And with that time comes the cost. When all of these factors come together, locked software components that require coding and physical designs that are difficult to access, the result is an almost perfect system. In the world of modern cars, the right to repair is no longer in the hands of the owner. It rests with those who control the software. And all of these barriers are not technical accidents. They are a financial strategy. So the real question is, who is actually profiting from your inability to fix your own car? Who benefits? The new business model of the auto industry. Why has everything become so complex and difficult to access? The answer doesn't lie with the engineers, it lies in the boardroom. For decades, car manufacturers made most of their money by selling new vehicles. But as the market became saturated, the profit from each car began to shrink. And that's when the industry realized something important. The biggest profits don't come from selling the car itself. They come from what happens after the car has been sold. Once a vehicle leaves the showroom, it enters an entirely different life cycle, the life cycle of service parts and maintenance. Every oil change, every sensor replacement, every electronic system repair. All of it generates new revenue for the manufacturer and its dealership network. And as repairing a car at home becomes increasingly difficult due to locked software components that require coding and hard-to-access designs, the result is the emergence of a steady stream of revenue. A stream of money flowing from the owner's wallet back into the manufacturer's service network. Not just for a few years, but throughout the entire lifespan of the vehicle, 10, even 20 years. But the auto industry hasn't stopped there. In recent years, some manufacturers have begun experimenting with an entirely new business model: cars as a service. Instead of selling only the hardware, manufacturers have begun selling access to features. One controversial example came from BMW. The company once experimented with charging about $18 per month just to activate heated seats, even though the heating hardware had already been installed in the car from the beginning. In other words, you bought the seat, but to use its heating function, you had to pay every month. Another example came from Toyota. The company once placed the remote start feature activated through the key fob behind a subscription service instead of letting it operate freely as it had in the past. These experiments reveal a clear trend. The nature of the car itself is gradually changing. It is no longer just a mechanical machine that you buy once and own forever. Instead, it is starting to resemble a modern electronic device, where the hardware becomes merely a platform for the software services built on top of it, like a smartphone, like software, like streaming platforms. And in that model, control no longer rests entirely in the hands of the person who owns the car. It now rests in the hands of the companies that control the software, the parts, and the service system surrounding the car. You become a long-term subscriber within the manufacturer's ecosystem. The garage door, the place where owners once fixed their own cars, is slowly closing as software and paid subscriptions expand their reach. So how exactly did the DIY era of car repair come to an end? And more importantly, what choices do you have left? The end of DIY. To be fair, we cannot deny what technology has brought to the automotive industry. Cars today are far safer than at any point in history. Automatic emergency braking systems can react in a split second before the driver even realizes there is danger. Sensors and cameras constantly scan the environment around the vehicle. Smart airbags and reinforced body structures are designed to protect passengers in situations that just a few decades ago would have been nearly impossible to survive. They are also more efficient. Engines consume less fuel, emissions are cleaner, and hundreds of algorithms inside the vehicle continuously optimize every cycle of the machine's operation. In many ways, the modern car is truly a marvel of engineering. But every advance comes with a price. And the price we are paying is the loss of connection between people and the machines they drive. Just look at the difference between the two eras. On one side, there are grease-stained hands tightening a bolt in a small garage behind the house. An old radio plays in the corner, and the sound of the engine starting after a repair brings a quiet sense of satisfaction. On the other side, there's the cold glow of a diagnostic screen with lines of error codes scrolling past. A technician stands in front of a laptop connected directly to the car's electronic system. In the past, a car was something the owner could truly understand. It wasn't just a means of transportation. It was a machine you could care for to maintain and extend the life of with your own hands. But today, that relationship is slowly disappearing. Most of what happens inside a car is now controlled by software, and that software is often beyond the owner's control. A new component may need to be programmed. A sensor may need to be registered with the system. Even something as simple as replacing a battery can require diagnostic software before the car will accept it. This is no longer just a technical issue, it marks the end of a culture. When a car needs the manufacturer's software access just to replace a battery, perhaps the DIY era has truly come to an end, and the final question is no longer how smart cars will become. The real question is how much ownership we still have over the things we've already paid for. We've talked a lot about software barriers and the profits of automakers, but the truth is technology will always move forward, becoming smarter, faster, and safer. That much is inevitable. What isn't certain is our role in that world. Will you remain a true owner, someone who understands and controls the machine you rely on? Or will you become a passive passenger, allowed to use it, but not allowed to touch it? The end of the DIY era isn't just about a spark plug or a battery. It's about a deeper question: our autonomy in a world that is increasingly defined by code. Don't let convenience make us forget the right to truly own what we buy. If you also find yourself questioning what ownership means in the age of technology, consider subscribing to the channel so we can keep exploring these questions together. And don't forget to leave a comment sharing your perspective. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.